Hello everyone.
Hello everybody.
With Easter coming up, we wanted to take this opportunity in our conversation to talk a little bit more about Easter, and particularly what it means in our lives on a very practical level, not only something theoretical or even theological, but practical. Good theology is actually meant to be practical, I would say. It often isn't. But
yeah, so this morning George was getting very passionate about Easter and the way that we celebrate Easter. So I thought he should tell you all as well. So you want to tell them what you were telling me this morning? You put it so well.
I think if we look at Easter, during those 3 days, Jesus is conveying, I think I express myself in a wrong way when I say Jesus is showing us. Jesus lived so fully and to its absolute extent that his life played out the pattern that is universal.
Oh, that's well put. Yes.
Am I expressing myself?
Yes.
So in other words, it's not as if Jesus sat and he said, how can I convey this message? I must die, and then there must be a resurrection. It wasn't. It was a life lived to the fullest, immersed in God, and playing out the universal pattern.
And us looking at that,
yes,
can pick that up from the life that he
yes,
that he led, that was shown to us.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And that life lived, that life lost, that life gained over Easter, that is the pattern. On the Friday, there's death. On the Saturday, there's liminal space, waiting, uncertainty. If one thinks of the followers of Jesus, what they must have felt and experienced on Saturday. Nothing was certain. What wasn't anymore. And they didn't know what to expect of the future. So there's the waiting, and then there is life on the Sunday.
But a transformed life.
Yes. A transformed life, more, an expansive life. And that is, if we can trust the dying and the liminal space, we can enter into the abundant life. But if we don't do that, if we want to skip death and uncertainty and waiting, we might think we have life. But it's not the real deal.
It's not fully alive.
No. It is the whole package. And to a large extent, us in the West, and now I'm picking on the West, it's a culture that I grew up in, and that's of which we are part of, and one can familiar with, and you see the patterns in yourself. We tend to focus on life, and that life also closely associated with light.
The good life.
Yes.
The perfect, the everything is okay life.
Yes, yes, yes. The pain and the discomfort avoiding life. And where we often think that there's something wrong when there is pain and when there is death.
And when there's uncertainty.
And when there's uncertainty, we get flustered. It can't be like this. I must change it. There must be constant life. That's not what Jesus lives.
That's not what nature shows us.
Exactly, exactly. Expand a little bit on nature.
Well, the whole pattern in the seasons that one sees, the dying off in winter, the waiting, and then the resurrection, the regrowth, now I can't get the English word for it. Seed that's germinating seeds. There you go. All of that is exactly that same pattern. Our lives, living our lives, dying. We are totally unsure what happens after that, but we believe in an expansion of consciousness, or whatever that means for you. So it's definitely something that one sees. The butterfly going into the pupa that becomes a mush, and then from that mush the butterfly is created, and so that whole transformation is constant even in a plant. You see it from a seed to, so that it's just everywhere if you really look.
And isn't it interesting how Jesus, if one were to go to the Gospels, and you see how many times he used nature images to convey his message. It was as if he said, what I'm living, what I'm conveying to you, you see that in nature as well. It plays out there as well. And when we are talking about this death and the waiting, the dark period, the period of uncertainty and transformation into new life, into abundance, Jesus puts it so beautifully in the Gospel of John, John 12, from verse 24. I'm reading here from the Message. He says there, listen carefully. Unless a grain of wheat is buried in the ground, dead to the world looks at it and it says it's dead. There's nothing there. It's gone. It's over. Buried in the ground, dead to the world, it is never any more than a grain of wheat. Phew. Unless there is dying, there can't be more. If you're not willing to go to let the death takes place, it only stays this. It can't be more.
Or something else.
Or something else.
It can't be fruit.
No. It's very small. It's restricted.
Sterile, really.
And bound up. So, unless a grain of wheat is buried in the ground, dead to the world, it is never any more than a grain of wheat. But if it is buried, if it dies, if it goes underground, it sprouts and reproduces itself many times over.
Mm.
In the same way, anyone who holds on to life just as it is destroys that life.
Mm.
This is beautiful.
Mm.
Anyone who holds on to life just as it is, say, I'm in a good place, I'm not going to change this. Destroys that life. It's going to waste.
Mm.
But if you let it go, and I love this phrase, reckless in your love,
Mm.
you'll have it forever, real and eternal.
Sure.
Isn't it beautifully put?
Mm.
But if you let it go, reckless in your love. Reckless in your love for what?
For maybe the more, for life.
So that you love life so much that you are willing to let it go.
Mm.
As if Jesus is saying here, if you love your life, let your life go, so that you can get a bigger life.
Mm. Mm.
Constantly this letting go, this dying, this
And then to be willing to wait.
yes.
Because I think often life happens and death happens in our lives in different forms. And we are often not willing to wait for the transformation that it can bring.
And it can take time.
That sort of waiting for the liminal space, if we are forced into pain or into death in some form, we often jump the liminal space to try and get into feeling secure and finding the light, the lighter side of things.
Yeah, because we in general are very productive. We want to create things, to achieve things, to accomplish things. So in a period where nothing happens, obviously, we want to skip that so that we can get to the productive part. This is a waste of time. But that's where the germination takes place.
Yeah, what's happening when nothing's happening.
Yeah. Everything is happening when nothing is happening, apparently. So it is so important. So the Saturday over the Easter weekend, it's such an important period. It's often called Holy Saturday, Silent Saturday. But it's just as important. It's part of this 3-day package, 3-day period, 3-day pattern that Jesus is showing us. There's death, there is waiting and uncertainty, and there's transformed life, abundance. But you can't focus on the one, and we're not saying that because the focus is to a large extent only on light and resurrection within the West, that it is bad or that one should avoid that. That not at all. It's just as important as all the others, but as important as the others. The others are just as important. The death, the letting go, whatever that letting go may be. And it takes many forms. That is just as important, the letting go and the liminal space and the uncertainty. And it's important that we who tend to focus on the resurrection, new life, that we develop a sensitivity for brokenness and tears and death, pain. It's not a wallowing. It's not at all that of only focus on that, but a sensitivity for that, because it is so integral in life as such. And to go there, and to develop a sensitivity for that. At this stage, the war in the Ukraine is so in the forefront. And one is heartbroken at this, looking at the scenes that play themselves out on television screens or on our computers or cell phones. But there's other pain as well. It's not only the pain in the Ukraine, how bad it is in itself, but there's other pain as well. There's still a war going on in Syria. There are refugees from all over the place trying to find a better life.
Or just a safe life.
A safe life. So that is taking all over. And now we're talking of events on the broader global scale. But if we look closer within our communities, in our families, and in ourselves.
Yes. What has to die or has died? What have we not grieved? What have we not sat with in our own lives? Barging ahead.
Yes. And during this Easter, to look at the whole pattern that Jesus is living. And against that backdrop, how would you like to celebrate Easter? One can say celebrate, eh?
I think so. I think to work with a pattern in my own life, and maybe to look at things that, as I said, that maybe I need to let go of, to let it die, or maybe things have died and I have not allowed myself, or I'm in the waiting stage and not knowing what the future will hold. But maybe just to sit with something, to use something as a symbol of the Easter pattern, and to work with it throughout the Easter weekend. Maybe write about it. And you?
Yeah, I think that is something I would like to do as well. And being in nature, where Jesus uses all these images from nature, and we're privileged in the sense that Easter is here right in the midst of autumn.
Yes, in the southern hemisphere.
In the southern hemisphere,
yeah.
Yes.
So in the southern hemisphere, we are very much into the letting go, and in the northern, they are very much into the resurrection. That's interesting.
Yes. And we both take the message from Easter.
Yes.
Because we are in the phase of letting go, and they are awaiting new life.
Yes.
Both important. And there again, the seasons and Earth as a whole, with a northern and a southern hemisphere, showing the pattern.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. And just to immerse myself over Easter in that pattern, also being played out in nature, and taking a message from that and allowing it to sink deep in. Thank you. and we would like to end this session with a period of silence. In our previous conversations, we often talked about the importance of silence. Ironically, one tends to talk about silence a lot. But let's enter into the silence. The richness of silence. The love and the acceptance of silence. And we allow the silence, which is another name for God, we allow the silence to give us a phrase flowing out of this conversation, this message that we've read in the Gospel, giving us a phrase that we can carry into our lives. Let it go and let it be. Amen. Thank you. And may you and your family, your loved ones, have a blessed Easter season. Keep well.
Keep well.